2, 1. Welcome, everyone. This is Dr. Paul Dyer, Bridges Light Presents You Be the Judge. We're here every Wednesday at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. to talk about information, understanding, and action. I have three amazing co-hosts, myself and Judge Claudia Barbara, and the next judge of Montgomery County Circuit Court Judge is Marilyn Pierre. She is actually not on camera, or you may get to hear her voice because you hear her voice on the podcast, but she's at the polls doing her thing. And for those of you who cannot see the visual, I'm wearing a Maryland for Judge shirt. Actually, I think Maryland's the only one I verbally, that's not true. If you ask me who I vote for, I'll tell you like that, because I don't hide it at all. It doesn't bother me who knows who I voted for, because I actually think, it's my personal opinion, I think we should have like a database that we prove that you voted. Because if you didn't vote, I'm not sure if you should be silent for like 12 months. I just to have a voice in these United States means you have to vote. I'm not even asking about who you voted for, but did you vote? I know that we're talking about Texas law has changed that it's not critical race theory. It is, what is it called again? Relocation, involuntary relocation it's called.
Well, that's the name that they're giving for slavery.
Right.
It's substituting the word slavery for involuntary relocation.
We have to keep saying that involuntary relocation. It's not slavery, it's involuntary relocation. So if I upset people, I'm okay with that because it's not intentional. What do you call the Holocaust? Is that also called involuntary relocation?
I'd like to hear the answer to that.
I'd like to hear the answer to that to the majority of the Jewish people who support Jewish community, who've been fighting for Jewish community. We have Joe Biden there in Israel today. That's his first stop. And we never hear anyone ever talk about the Jewish community talking about involuntary relocation.
You never hear any whitewashing of the experience. You never hear some strong desire to restate or create a new narrative about the Holocaust and what happened in these United States of America.
Right. You hear it in other countries, that you do hear. And I've heard people say that the Holocaust didn't exist and it was a false thing. Hold on.
Okay.
But
that's pretty wild and wacky.
Yeah, but it's not in these countries. It's not in this country that people say it. It's usually from some other radical group in another place. But Comfort, you want to say something? Go ahead, Comfort. We've been doing Zoom for 2 years, people. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, you probably muted me. Yeah, just like you, I know who to vote for, but this is the first time I'm receiving, the yellow voters registration. Where do I go to vote for Marilyn Pereira? They said I have to go to, can you see my address?
I have it too. So here's the thing. When you fill this out, then you get the ballot. So this is an absentee. Otherwise, just go to the polls.
Okay, they will give me the real.
Yeah. Just show your ID, go to the polls, and go from there.
Okay, when is the last day to vote?
Today. You got to go tomorrow.
Today?
Yeah.
Wait. Hold
on. I just need her to go.
Wait.
It's the 19th.
It's the actual primary day is July 19th.
Right.
Early voting is usually Thursday to Thursday.
Right.
So polls will close tomorrow at 7
for early voting.
7 p.m. or something like that.
7
p.m.
p.m.
But the good thing, I know in our county and probably all over the state, it's not, you don't have to go to a specific poll in your county. You can go to any county poll to vote.
Right.
Now, that's not the case on primary day. You have to go to a designated poll. But if you are voting for the first time, you can cast a provisional ballot, which sounds like that's what you're doing.
And for the first time, for severally, I voted for Obama. I voted.
Okay. So you requested an absentee ballot? Is that why you have the yellow form?
That's what the yellow form is.
Oh, okay.
I did, but
Yeah.
that's what I received. That's why I was wondering.
Yeah. So to answer your question, Comfort, just go to the polls tomorrow.
Okay, I will.
All right. Lower your hand.
Today's the last day, then.
So Val, welcome back. We know that we're going to get interrupted because of Judge Claudia Barbara. It's an FBI issue. So don't hesitate about your voice. And I have to tell you, most people, I want people to get the voting information that you have put out, Val. It is out flipping standing. I was so impressed with the amount of information you put together in that Black Voters Guide.
Thank you. Thank you.
Insane. Did you do this by yourself? Did you have like little minions running around? I mean, like, are you gruel? Or like, what is going on? You got Oompa Loompas?
No, we just have, and excuse the echo, I'm actually in the library in Silver Spring and in one of these meeting rooms. No, we had a group of volunteers who just decided this was important. And we've been working since January on putting out a Black voter guide. And it was a massive amount of work. Let me just say the Montgomery County voter guide is 197 pages.
Yes. I got it. I got the
Right.
DC. I got the Montgomery County. I got Maryland. I got it.
And DC is 114. And you know why it is? Because we went to every candidate and offered them the opportunity to answer not 4 questions, not 10 questions. I think the Montgomery County one, we had 17 questions.
17 questions.
Because life is complex.
Right.
You cannot respond to my community's needs in 5 questions. And we also didn't give them a word count. So every candidate could take as much space as they wanted to say whatever it was they wanted. They can't claim, oh, you cut me off, I would have said more. No. And we stayed up night after night. I'm talking about all night long, editing, formatting, volunteers. So what volunteers can do is an amazing thing if you're committed. And not only did we ask them questions that came from the community, this wasn't from our volunteer team. We had community meetings on Zoom. We did surveys starting from January, but we gave them information. So for every single question, there are links to data. So in case you don't know the Black community, click on this link about affordable housing. Click on this link about schools. Click on this link about mental health. So we wanted an informed response. And that took work. So we had to educate ourselves, get the links together, make sure the data were accurate. It was a lot.
Was it specific to one county?
We had teams in Washington, D.C., Montgomery County, and Prince George's County. But when it came to the state level, we combined the questions from Montgomery and Prince George's County, as well as the data. And
only those counties.
Right, but we went where we had the volunteers, but the questions that you'll see at the state level are relevant to all Black folks.
Okay.
And so it was a lot, and it's a lot to read. So we say, when you go get the Black voter guide, please have a beverage and a meal, clear some space, and invest the time to vote smart for your candidate. This isn't a grab the ballot at the last minute and see whose name you recognize or look out the window on your neighbor's lawn. That's not what this is. That's not what the moment requires.
So Val, I went to go vote. You know how people are handing out things like Maryland's doing today, and you're going to get people that, oh, I didn't know who you are. I didn't know what you want. So my silly ass mouth, and I don't mean to insult people, but a person came up and this guy says, vote for blah, blah, blah. I'm running for Congress. He's like, really? And I said, really? I heard it. He's like, because he was handing him a flyer, right? He said, really? I said, wait a minute. Really that he's running, or really you don't know who the hell he is? He's like, I never heard of him. And I paused. I was like, so I got to find out. Where you been? How come you don't know who's running for Congress? Well, I didn't know. I knew who I was going to vote for, but I didn't know this person's running for Congress. So that means you only are going to vote for someone you recognize or someone you have voted for. He's like, well, I said, so let me ask you this. Have you been getting everything you've been wanting out of this particular race, this particular congressional person? That I'm not going to ask you who it is, but for this particular person, is they getting everything? He goes, well, it's not all what I wanted. So why wouldn't you research or find out other people who are running in the same race? Or you're literally going to re-vote this person back in. He's like, I never looked at it that way. And I went like this with my bald head. And I went, okay, do you want to go have coffee? Do you want to sit down? Do you want to talk? Because I am adamantly so, I get excited for the process, for the progress that we could do. And yet people are not doing their work. Do some damn work. Put in some work.
Well, let me also keep in mind that your research has got to be deeper than I read news articles. It's got to be. It's got to be. My preferred method of outreach or doing research really is to pick up a voter's guide. Even if it's the League of Women Voters Guide that's available at the library, or what Val Davis has created, the Black Voters Guide. Anne Arundel County NAACP has put out a voter's guide as well. And it's very comprehensive, and we're getting good feedback from all candidates that responded, that were willing to respond. This is important. These are important races. We should not be haphazardly. And come November, we have important constitutional questions to answer too. All the voters do, independent, Republicans, Democrats, everybody. But for now, we have to see who's going to primary out. And the judges race is important when it comes to the circuit court, because whoever you put into that seat is going to be there for 15 years. That's a career, and they'll have a strategic advantage. And the bad thing about the 15-year term is that they can be, whoever it is, they could be totally dismissive to cases that they don't like. And it's nothing you can do about it because you put them there for 15 years. They could care less and turn, in another direction for 15 years because you voted for them and put them on the bench. And that's why this judicial process is so important. That's why we can't fall asleep at the wheel. That's why it's significantly important that you that you know the candidates and what their what their position is. Look how the Supreme Court has performed just this whole year.
And there's more coming.
I said, we're working on a Freedom Fund banquet for the NAACP. And, I said, I'm not even thinking about inviting anybody from the Supreme Court. They have just upset my nerves. So
well, what you mentioned, the importance of the judges race in the Black Voter Guide, as I mentioned earlier, we invited every single candidate in every single race in Montgomery County, Prince George's County, Washington, D.C., and at the state level to participate. The only candidates for judge who responded were the two who are not sitting judges.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Let me say it again. Your sitting judges did not feel it was important to respond to the Black Voter Guide questionnaire.
Now,
Is that the most arrogant thing you've ever heard?
Well, no, because I could tell you some more stuff, but we don't have time for high level arrogance. But it's, I don't, there are many ways to interpret that, right?
right.
There are.
And yet I don't care. I don't owe them generosity in my interpretation.
Right. So go for it.
So I was going to give you my picks, and then I decided I'll disappoint you on that. And here's why. Because the way that I pick, I think, is more instructive than who I pick. And I'm a process person. If I just go down to the result, it's like, the sign in my yard, right?
Right.
But to Judge Barber, what she was saying, it matters how we do what we do. Right. We have to sit down and, excuse the expression, read, and then think, and then have discourse, and then decide. We really do. This is that important. Now, to your point, Dr. Dyer, about, being shocked about people who don't do those things. We don't do that when we get ready to have babies. We don't do that when we get ready to get married. We just say love. That's why the divorce rate is what it is. People have children that they have no business having because they're not prepared to be parents, but we don't have a preparation for that.
And we don't have a test for that.
We don't educate children to be highly civically minded or engaged. They don't know what to do, and it's not an accident. So I hear you on the, you need to sit in a corner and have several seats if you don't vote, except for the fact that we've taught people not to vote. When you don't teach people what to do, you're teaching them what not to do, right? And then we only have election season. It's a season. It's not a movement that's constant civic engagement,
Mary
right?
Lynn wants to chime in, I believe.
Right. So
hold on.
I'm just going to say, I have some grace for people who don't know that they don't know that they should vote.
Marilyn, give us the update out there. Our field reporter, Marilyn. Go ahead. Marilyn.
She's on. I can see her.
Mm-hmm.
She's on, but she's at the polls.
Right, but her mic is on. Come on, Marilyn, say something. She probably can't even hear us. It's probably busy.
Okay.
Go ahead, Holly.
It's just funny to me. Instructive. I want to make a point that how many times I'm thinking that people don't know how to research candidates. And I remember years ago, the Washington Post endorsed someone I thought was horrible. And I was so angry that I called them up and I said, do you have people among the people who are endorsing who live in Montgomery County? They didn't. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I could be wrong. It was so long ago, but they didn't come to the defense of their process. But well, I'm not going to say who it was, but I thought they did an outrageous endorsement for county executive. We'll not say anything more, but they don't say their process or very much about why or how. It's just here.
Well, Holly, one of the things I don't trust about the Washington Post or any other news publications, or it's a money issue to me.
Right.
It's who's giving the money to them to put out what they want to put out.
And that's what I think for the county executive, they chose kind of a Trumpian big money kind of person.
Oh.
And that's my concern. But I will say something. I got to tell you, my late great husband was listed among good lawyers in some list. And he said, I never thought very much about that list until I was on it. And then I thought, how smart they were.
Well,
so that gives you an idea, right?
The issue of endorsements is an interesting one to consider, right? And I am stunned. I continue to be stunned that no one comes to the Black community for endorsements.
Nope. But you
Wow.
said that last week too. that
Right,
we're
right.
just not valuable. We're not valued. And I wrote an article about how that we're not. I took a lot of the words you said and how we are not valued and not even considered valuable. We're just considered servants or slaves. Oh, I'm sorry. It's not slaves, people. It's
You were
voluntary relocation.
involuntary relocation. Get
Right,
it
right.
right now.
Well, it's interesting that you said that, but see, you could make the same argument as to why the sitting judges did not respond to the Black voters guide. But now, first of all, they do have a canon of a judicial code of ethics. But so it depends on the questions that you may have asked them, and I don't know all the dynamics that go into that. But the sitting judges did respond to the League of Women Voters guides before. So, that
Which I
raises
have
the
right
question,
here.
well, which I raise, not the appellate judges, but usually the circuit court judges will. And I've seen responses in prior campaigns and years or prior election years where they have responded, and some of them wait till their rivals respond before they put out their answers. And so, all that gamesmanship goes on when it comes to campaigns and campaigning.
Right. So, I'm in the library and I had to put out the Black voter guide on the same table as the League of Women Voters Guide. And quiet as it's kept, the League of Women Voters Guide of Maryland actually partnered with us to do this. Montgomery County, but Montgomery County, that's the state level. Montgomery County, I couldn't get a call back. I even sort of photobombed their forums for League of Women Voters and chatted them up, the leaders of it. And I said, here we are in Montgomery County, and Nikki Tyree, your executive director at the state level, says that we should partner. Can we at least have a chat? Can't get him on the phone. Just wait. I'm like a dog with a bone. Anyway, I'm looking at the candidates for judge of the circuit court in the League of Women Voters Guide, and yes, they did respond to that. But they were asked very interesting questions, and Marilyn is here as well. But it says, how does your experience prepare you for the duties? What are your priorities for this office? And what are the greatest challenges facing Maryland's court system? And when they respond, they give them, a certain amount of space to respond. That's interesting. I want to know what you're going to do and what your perspective is on the Black community. So that's what we asked about, and that's lovely. So what we tell people is, and we even put a link to League of Women Voters in our guide, because different people ask different questions.
That's right.
But here's the thing. So I said I wasn't going to give you picks, but you can read between the lines. What I want to share is how I decide, because in my belief in life is, if you decide how to decide, the answer just falls out.
That's right.
Like my dad used to say, give anybody enough time, they'll show you who they are. That's a process. You don't pick first. You decide that the process is that I need to see you over time. And so here are my 7 guidelines for how I decide who to vote for. One is, I examine the nature of the race. I understand the difference between those who are running in a primary and then will want to be elected in the general election, and those who are only running now. You have to understand that everybody on the ballot isn't coming back in November. I understand the nature of the race, and therefore their intensity about getting elected in July is different if they're not in the general election. So I look at them differently, right? Number 2, I understand the power and the purpose of the position. In our guide, we explain what every position does. If you don't know, don't even vote. If you don't know what the circuit court's judges do, don't vote. If you don't know what a Board of Education person is, I'm telling you not to vote, because you're messing up my influence at the ballot box, right? So what is the power that position has? No, right. What's the power and the purpose of the position? And does the person understand that? Number 3, what is their relevant experience? They don't have to have direct experience, because I believe in voting for people who are not incumbents. But do you have some relevant experience? That would be nice. Number 4, do you know your constituents? So in our Black voter guide, and I will refer to it if I have time, we ask them, what are the top 3 health disparities in Black communities?
So on your
If you
first
can't
question,
answer that, then you don't, number 4, you don't know your constituents.
on your first question, this is for the judges, because I know Judge Claudia Barber about what did you the word use in case they can't answer things? Not discretion. Anyway, for the first question,
Their ethics.
Their ethics, right? What will you do to ensure voting rights for all people and equal access to the ballot box in Black communities? Marilyn responded.
Yes, she did.
Right. So I don't think is that an ethical question, Judge Claudia Barber? What do you think?
Repeat the question again now.
Yeah, yes, ma'am. What will you do to ensure voting rights for all people and equal access to the ballot box in Black communities?
Well, they might consider that a policy question because you're asking them how would they support voting rights legislation and
The
the
legislation wasn't
policies.
used. Policy or legislation was not used. It's voting rights for all people and ensure an equal access to the ballot box. So legislation wasn't used, and neither was policy. Now, the words policy and legislation, if it was used, then I would lean towards what you're talking about, but it wasn't.
And the reason that it wasn't is because we're smart. I'm a lawyer. I know, a teaspoon about the law, and I know not to put people in those positions. So we ask questions about how would you support? How would you approach? What are your views on? And we said in our instructions, we want to know your views, even if it is not in the scope of the position you're running for. We said that thing. And if you read the instructions,
yes,
you could say something like, this is not in the purview of the county council, and yet here's how I would respond to that issue area. We asked that.
Well, I remember once I was at a candidate forum in 2016, and during the Caucus of African American Leaders, they actually had the forum. The question was raised about affirmative action, and one of the sitting judges refused to answer the question. And the rest of them took the lead. Don't answer that question. That was intentional. I had the liberty to answer that specific question. So I know that they would freeze up and reassess the question as asked and try to figure out would the response is or do I have to elicit some type of policy stance? And the one thing I do know as part of the Code of Judicial Conduct is that, you can't ask them, what are your views on gun control? You can't ask them questions like, what are, that would elicit, how would they decide on a specific case? So if you ask them a question where you're asking them to give the answer as to how you would decide on a voting rights case that came before them, they can't answer that.
Right.
So that is within the confines of do and don't.
Well, here's the thing that I say to all questions. Even if I ask you a question that, first of all, if I ask you one that's not in the scope of what you do, but I told you that we want to understand your views, even if it's not, then I'm expecting you to say something. Then if you decide that for some reason this is not a question that you can answer, say that. But to not respond violates my principle number 6 for how I decide. I need to know that you acknowledge the value of the Black community. Acknowledgement means you send me an email that says, thank you so much for inviting me. Due to the Judicial Code of Conduct, I've reviewed the questions and I'm unable to say this, but I can say that, because the reason you show up for a vote is because you expect to have to earn it. So say something. The fact that you say nothing speaks volumes, because even in polite society, if I ask you for some sugar and you don't have no sugar, you're going to say, I'm sorry, I don't have any sugar. You're not going to give me crickets. So the fact that you choose not to respond, not to acknowledge, you have violated number 6. You have not acknowledged the value of the fact that I even I have a vote and I asked you a question.
Or that you exist.
You exist. That you exist.
Right. So negative have several seats. That was number 6. The 5 was evidence of impact. Show me, especially if you're an incumbent, that you have had an impact in the areas that are important to us. Don't just give me words, don't quote legislation, don't tell me about things you passed. What's the impact of what you did? And the last one is the trickiest one. And Marilyn and I had a discussion with some community members last week about this. Number 7 is your win potential. Can you win? Can you win? Because there's a concept in my mind of a wasted vote. And I'm going to pick a person who I think is fair game at this juncture. Rashawn, running for governor.
Right.
Still on the ballot because the ballot is set before he suspended his campaign. I am in direct contact with people who are working on his campaign who he tells them every day, I'm still in the race.
Yes.
But I say to them, he hasn't told me he's still in the race.
That's right.
When I go to the polls, there are no Rashawn Baker Navarro signs. And I keep emailing these people, is he really in? They're like, yes, we voted for him. And I'm saying,
no.
Is he win? What's his win potential?
It's not, because he killed his win potential when the national news said he was dropped.
And then he engaged in a conversation in the media talking about who he would then endorse. That says it's all over, sir.
It says he's done.
No, is he funded? Is he privately funded? Is he?
No, he's not. I think he took public funding, but that's the issue. If you withdraw before, you have to pay it back.
You do. I mean, what?
So suspended is different than withdrawn.
Right.
And so you have to pay the money back. And
and that's the same thing. That's the same thing. I need not mention her name, a candidate in Montgomery County too.
And it's a shame because
it's a profound shame.
He's going to get votes because he's on the ballot. You can't take him off the ballot.
Right, correct.
And what I said to this particular campaign person who's like, every night they're on the phone and she's asking people for money in a campaign that is still suspended. I said, how can you ask for people's money? Because he said he's still in. I said, well, then why isn't he controlling the narrative in the media to tell people he's still in? I'm listening. Because I haven't heard an ad. I haven't heard of anything.
He's not.
So the win potential is a factor. If you can't win, then even if I love you, even if you 6 out of 6 on the other 6, that's 7. They're all not weighted equally.
But here's the thing, Val. I think people look at or view or perceive who's winnable by not doing the work. And then it just becomes a thought process like, I don't think you're going to win. Like they do that to Maryland. I don't think she's going to win. So they dismiss her. But have you done the work? Have you really looked at what she is doing, how she's doing, what she can do? If you haven't done that and you just think, I just don't think she can win, you're what are you basing it off of?
I wanted to ask you about something because I really thought of this question and don't have the answer. But on the sitting judges, I don't think a challenger has ever deposed in Montgomery County a sitting judge. No. But I think in other counties they have. So they are winnable in other counties, but not in Montgomery County. Am I right?
I want to address that, Holly.
That's Maryland.
Good.
We can't hear you.
Because I think the issue is not so much that they're not winnable. I think that there's so much going around that it makes it really difficult for them to win. Because, for instance, because of what the Democratic Party did, I'm the only one in Montgomery County who won the Democrats' primary but lost the general election because, the Democrats decided to get together with the Republicans to put the person who I was told is a registered Republican who actually lost the Democrats' primary on their general sample ballot. So I think that, had it not been for that, I would have won the general election and I would have been a sitting judge by now.
Well, okay, and would your perspective on running as a sitting judge be different than your perspective now on being a challenger?
Well, to me, the reason why the law was made that way is so that way a small group of insiders wouldn't always be able to choose our judges.
Yep, yep,
Because if you
Yep.
don't allow challengers in, you have a small group of people. Nobody knows who these people are. Nobody knows what their interests are. They then vote for for the people who are applying. Those names get on the governor's desk, and then that's it. The voters just get to rubber stamp what's already been chosen.
yep,
And you
yep.
have no idea why these particular people were chosen. One of the things that I think is so difficult for the people who are running on the slate is that the only thing they could say is we were chosen. They don't actually articulate a reason why
They don't have to.
they are running or why they would be a good judge. They're like, we were chosen, we've been endorsed, and so vote for us. Why are you running? Why were you chosen?
And just to go back to something that you didn't hear, it was pointed out that the sitting judges didn't respond to some candidates' information.
Right. And the thing that you asked, Dr. Dyer, when you were talking about how people, go ahead, Marilyn.
Marilyn, can you turn up your mic? You're muffled.
Am I low? Let me speak louder. Yeah, because they cannot articulate why it is that they're running or why it is that they should be a judge, except that they were chosen. For me, for instance, I talk about why I'm running. I'm running because I believe in restorative justice. They cannot say something as simple as that. And so it's going to be the same old, same old. So they don't want people to talk about these topics. They want to
Well,
talk about
but there's
why
another
they were chosen.
issue that no one can defend this process. But the
Exactly.
people who are judges don't speak out against it because they benefit from that process.
That's true.
Right. And if you go to their website, so, we've been to every single website for every candidate, period. And their story that they tell is that as compared to challengers, that they've been through a rigorous selection process against which no challenger can stand. And that's what they're relying on, that not only are they chosen, but in the process of being chosen, they had to go through a process that a Maryland didn't get to go through. So you should have more confidence
But
in
just
them.
the answer to that is that process did not necessarily elect the sitting judges in other counties other than Montgomery County, and it should be noted. And I don't think it is.
So here's another thing they put on their little on their booklet.
Sorry, Paul.
Go ahead,
What
Marilyn.
they also don't say about the process is that the process contains their law partner in that commission. The process contains, their law partner's friends and, people who are insiders and people whose houses they've gone out to, to dinner, to people they hang out with regularly. That's what the process is. That's why they don't want to talk about the process itself.
Yeah.
Because they would have to reveal how they know these people on the commission and how, somebody who's coming in like myself would not know these people because I represent a bunch of poor and disenfranchised people.
So here's
So
the other
we don't
thing.
hang out in the same circle, but it doesn't mean that, challengers are not qualified. As a matter of fact, Kathleen Dumais herself last year, when she tried to pass a bill to keep people from challenging people like her who get appointed, when they asked her, based on what you've seen on the people who have been elected, do you see any deficiencies? And she said no. So now that she's running, she's spouting something else, but it's on record that she said no, she did not see any deficiencies between the people who are appointed and the people who've been elected.
So it matters who you put in the governor's seat because the governor's going to decide these things.
Well,
Or be passive about it.
well,
Right,
here's, here's one of the things that people get confused at when you don't do the work and you just pick up all these flyers that come in your mailbox. It says the sitting judges are endorsed by Democratic candidates for governor, including Peter Franchot, Wes Moore, Tom Perez, and all Montgomery County senators. Former county executive Ike Leggett, Senator Chris Van Hollen, Congressman David Chorn and Attorney General Brian Frost, and underline the Washington Post. This allows people to say, if they are endorsed by all these people, then who am I to go against that and rebuke this claim of information? Because even the Washington Post must do the work, right? I mean, that's why they put them last, because even if you don't believe all these people, the Washington Post, come on, right? It's a staple paper. Whatever.
But see, it goes to what you said before. You said even that people have a way of voting. My 7 guidelines are my 7 guidelines. What that is different from acknowledging as a candidate or a constituent or a neighbor how people have been trained to vote. It goes back to the prior discussion. We have trained people
not to vote,
to look for brands and shiny objects.
That's how we pick our shoes.
Right.
We pick out.
This is how we've trained our children. This is how we've trained. We've trained them for Amazon Prime Day. We've trained them for Black Friday. We've trained them for the Nike swoosh. So what they're looking for as a substitute for the work that we really are saying that people need to do is they're giving power to the brands and the influencers to influence them and abdicating that because we've trained them to do that.
And just remember, that's how Donald Trump got to be elected president.
Exactly. And so all of you who are educators out there, the question really is, and it's not, and it's equally a question for the candidates. If you're going to get in a race, you have to understand the psychology of how people are going to decide.
And the branding.
Right. And so then the question becomes for those who are educators, and I'm not, for those who are psychologists and social behavior specialists, how do you retrain? How do you train the young who are not yet indoctrinated? And how do you retrain people to do this in a different way in terms of civic engagement? It's not just civic engagement, it's to make decisions and think for yourself.
Well, Val, you really hit on something, when you talk about, for me, human development and brain science and how people are being branded by commercials, being branded by information, being branded. I mean, is Nike that much of a shoe better than any other sneaker? I don't know. I don't buy them. I don't care. But do they sell more? Absolutely. Right.
Jordans.
Right.
I don't know. Whatever the thing is. I don't know. I'm not a brand hound. I don't do that.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm just a regular voter. I'm in the League of Women Voters. I was active. But you'd be surprised how many people are calling me to ask me for whom I'm voting. And I said, and I probably described this before, a neighbor of mine is the loveliest person, and she just got her citizenship, and she ran up and said, now you can tell me who to vote for. And I said, how many people would not say, okay, I'll tell you who to vote for? I said, no, I don't do that. I'm going to, discuss the issues. I'm going to show you how you determine who to vote for.
But okay, so let me just push back on that for a minute. Let me push back on that for a minute.
I was gonna push back too. Holly, you blew it.
No,
exactly what hell she should vote for.
I want her engagement. I want her.
Being mean.
Dr.
Dyer, that's me. I'm saying.
May I be heard for a minute?
Hold on.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. How does one deal? All these people, including the Washington Post, have endorsed the 4 sitting judges. My answer was they raised $500,000 this last election, and they could make life miserable or they could make life more difficult for people who refuse to endorse them. Do we have a better answer?
Are you saying that they have an excess amount of leverage so that they have to get the endorsements? They have too much leverage? Yeah,
they $500,000 in 2 years ago. The sitting judges spent $500,000. And all this is a public record, by the way. You just look at the State Board of Elections figures.
Well, let me let me just make sure I understand what you're saying. So let's take the flip side. Are you saying that if the Washington Post or Francho just said, I'm not endorsing any judge, that the pain would be too much for them from the judges? Is that, you're saying that's their perception, that it would cost them too
They
much
would
to
be
say no?
their perception is that the money that sitting judges have could be used against them.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Oh,
well,
So, I would like if I can't figure out a better answer, I would like one.
well, I
no,
mean, that's the whole discussion about money in
Yeah,
election,
election.
like public finance versus money in elections. You know,
and to be, I'll put it out there. I believe in public financing. I just don't believe in private money. I just
Okay,
don't. I think,
right now, I want either from Maryland to win this time, or to set things up so that 2 years from now, with a Democratic governor, she will win. That's what
well,
I
here,
want.
yeah, okay. So this goes to, it's one thing to want to change the system. It's not, and simultaneously operate in the system that you're in. And right now, the system that we're in, which cannot be changed short of legislation,
Right.
and if we don't have the political will to do that in the midst of everything else, that won't happen for some period of time. So you got to play the game with the cards that you're dealt. And right now, the
Agreed.
cards are about money.
Yep.
So the question is, how do we put more money in the places that we feel are worthy of that money? And as we talked about the last time, the only way you can position yourself to do that is to have a legal structure that allows you to do it. We have too many organizations that have the right point of view,
They don't
have a
have the
bunch
money.
of members, but they're not positioned because they're 501c3s and they can't take positions.
So you're going to fix that problem, because we
Oh,
talked about this
yes.
last week. And what is that problem? You already said that you're going to do a 501(c)(4).
C4. Mhm.
So explain what your process is next that you're going to embark on.
The process is, I'm working with Black Women for Positive Change, and we have decided that, and when I say we, this is just a bunch of Black women sitting on a Zoom saying, you know, the light bulb has gone on, that we have to create ability to finance and to
Can a
take
Black
position.
man show up?
Okay, I'm gonna get to you, bro, man. Okay, hold on, just a minute. Give me a minute.
We're already being left out and locked up. Shit.
Y'all ain't left out and locked up. Y'all invited to the meetings, but I don't know why. Anyway, we're gonna talk about that later. The idea is to bring together as many like-minded influencers. They're not necessarily the head of the Panhandle or the NAACP. They can be invited, the usual suspects. But if you consider yourself an influence, like Holly, you're an influencer if somebody is asking you for you to tell them how to vote. You're an influencer if you are the one in your family that calls everybody up and says, check number 6, number 5, number 2, number 4. You're an influencer. To come together to establish an understanding that in this system, we have to move money to have power. And that structure is a 501c4. Do you want in? Because we want in for we want in 2 years from now. So in other words, to get that done 2 years from now, have any money, have any influence. And we're talking about at the local level, because there is movement for national races, but not at the local level, for a Maryland, for somebody running for county council, right? So how can, right. So we need to form an organization that can move that power together. Now, I'm gonna be honest with you. The perception is, and the struggle is, certainly within the Black community, is that we are very fractured by design and to some extent by choice. We have our own perceived brands. We have our own perceived circles of influence that this would require that everybody share the same priority about this. So that might mean with limited resources, you have to put aside your pet project with eyes on 2024.
Right.
And say we're all gonna work together. That's a sacrifice for some people, because we've been doing the I don't mean no harm Freedom Fund for however many years. But if you only got X number of volunteers and we trying to get 2024 together, we might have to make that the 501c4 fund. So yes, we're going to do it. We're going to invite whoever wants to come. It's going to be an interesting goulash of conversation, but it's going to get done
So,
because we need to move power and votes.
so this past weekend, July 8th and 9th, as we talked about prior to having it, was the Crisis in the Black Community conference at Morgan. This goes to this fractured comment you made. Out of all the letters we sent out, to sitting representatives and people who are in elected officials throughout all of Maryland, we sent all those letters out and emails. And we sent out letters and emails to Black people who are running for any seat, national, local, in every county.
Mhm.
It's so fractured that all the 225 people that are running, 7 people responded.
Whoa.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised either, but people are surprised, like yourself, because did certain people show up? Yeah, about 5 of them. Did other people have called on a national scale, so they couldn't come? Yes. But out of the Black people running in all the counties, in all of Maryland, so few. Not to say I couldn't make it. I don't have any
I'll send a
sugar.
representative. I'll send a volunteer.
Right. Thanks for offering. Thanks for being there. I'm working, blah, blah, blah. Nothing. And
Well, listen, this is what I'm told about that. That it is, you can't take, we're not a white space community in the sense that we don't operate where the space is white and you invite us to co-create.
right.
This is a show me. And we understandably want to be shown because we've been used, abused, tripped out, self-hate, whatever you want to call it, stressed out, traumatized. So when it's what I've been told is do something first and then invite me. Show me first and then invite me, even
Right.
within the Black community. I'm just going to be, we have to be
true.
real.
It's true. Because the article I wrote, I said, the saddest issue is that if you like music, I bet you look for jazz concerts coming your damn way, right? And be like, damn, it's coming here in August. I better gear up, get ready. But anything that has anything about pushing the community forward, show me first, and then I'll join you later.
Right,
That's
because
a
mistrust and
bunch of
distrust.
bullshit.
No, but mistrust and distrust are what we've been taught.
Bernadette, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in because I know we're going towards the end here, but I wanted to pick up on a couple of things. First, thank you, Valerie, I heard you say that you have a space of grace for voters because of, I feel like we're incentivized not to vote, and thank you also in this exchange for acknowledging the traumas that we are in. And that's what maybe contributes to the perception of being fractured and divided. Let's tap into it. And I just want to say that because I understand that we are a traumatized diaspora, I want to make it easy for people who I influence to vote. Mm-hmm. If someone asks me, for whom should I vote? I'm going to very quickly ask them what their priorities are. And I will come out and say, for whom you should vote, because I want to make it easy for people. I'm not going to tell them you need to do the work and engage. No, because all of US, when you think of most US citizens, we're living a harsh life. Yeah. Some of us have family members who live in other rich democracies, and we see that they don't have the harsh life that we have in terms of they don't have student debt, they have universal health care, their elections take place on the weekends, so I hope that I'm not babbling here, but
I hear your pain, Bernadette.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want people to have an easy time of voting. And that's why I appreciate so much all that hard work that you did, Val, on these guides. Not everybody's going to be able to sit down and read them, but I will read them. And I will try to distill them for other people to give them a shortcut so that they can go and vote. And one of the number one things, I know folks are not announcing any candidates here, but I'm not voting for David Blair for county executive. And that's controversial for some people on this call.
Hold on. The FBI stopped you right there.
I'm not voting for him. I know. I'm sorry, because he wants armed police officers in the schools.
Correct.
And I do not support that.
Nope.
And we had a long conversation about the school to prison pipeline, especially in the state of Maryland. And I think that his position of having armed officers in public schools contributes to that problem. I will never vote for him. And I will always tell folks, don't vote for the Republican Party. And again, I know that might be controversial, but I just wanted to say, thank you for bringing together the pragmatic with acknowledging the trauma, because I'm going to try to do that in the engagement with whoever I have influence over.
And that was she perfectly encapsulated my version of the pushback, Holly, right, which is to acknowledge, yes, there's the holy grail of we would love for everybody to engage, right? But it's just like that visual of equity, right? The kids standing on the boxes and wherever your starting point is different. So your version of equity, it's different for different people.
No, but just go back to, remember when the Black voter asked Donald Trump why he should vote for, and he said, what do you have to lose? Well, someone should have said, you have a lot to lose.
Right. And then tell them who to vote for.
Right. But a lot of people did. And it was easy, far too easy. I'm of the belief to vote for the person who commandeers the greatest number of dollars. They have the airwaves, they have the, and someone's got to say, it's not easy. You have to discern, what you have to lose.
Right. But you have to, we also have, and we have to take into account that you might be putting the 101st plate on a stack when you say that.
Right.
That's all we're saying, is that it might be plate number 101. And I hear you and I want to do it. But right now I'm getting ready to go to the COVID-19 funeral number 17 in my family.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out really how to pay this mortgage, even though you think I look a certain way.
Right.
My husband lost his job. My kids are getting and I'm just be personal for a minute. My mother is in the hospital, blessing everybody out because she's got cognitive issues and refuses to accept help. So she's been in the hospital 5 times in the last 2 months, to the ER 6 times in the last 2 months. And I have a daughter at home who has told me she doesn't see a reason to keep living at 15.
Yeah.
So if you tell me what I ought to do right now,
right,
and go read. I'm just gonna tell you, okay, thank you.
I'd say read Jamie Raskin's Unthinkable. That'll help you.
Right. Well, I'm just gonna say this. In terms of governor candidates, just so y'all know, Rashawn Baker did not respond to our Black voter guide.
Nope.
Wow.
None of the Republican candidates responded to our Black voter guide.
Nope.
And my question is, when I hear someone saying Tom Perez, and I spoke to him about the Equal Rights Amendment, and he said, "Oh, we can't." When he was Democratic chair, we have so many other things to do. And then I hear Wes Moore saying, "Leave no one behind." How can he not be my candidate?
Well, Perez didn't respond, Jaffe didn't, Gansler didn't, and Rashawn Baker did. And I'm just putting that out there. And I also don't know why we don't know much about running mates. Because if number 1 falls down, I need you to actually think that I should know something about your lieutenant governor. That's insulting to me.
That is insulting.
Yeah.
I wanted, before we close out here, I just want to let people know we're here every Wednesday from 6 to 7. You be the judge. And if you have any comments, questions, or thoughts, just please, you can inbox us as you watch this on all your social media links and intern. And you can always email me directly at drpaulwdyer@gmail. And Val, I want to let you know I have been in your situation via daughter and mother several times. Out of my 7 daughters, 5 of them had said the same thing, and we had to go the route of hospital. My mother died with dementia. So I understand exactly where you are, and this is no small feat, but do keep your feet solid on the ground and do what you have to do to keep your daughter safe. That is the ultimate thing. This is not about because you're going to get cursed out like I did with one of my daughters when we took her to the hospital. But this has nothing to do with how I feel or what it is. This is about keeping you safe, period. And we'll go from there. We'll deal with the aftermath later. And if anyone has anything left to say before we take off, and see you guys next Wednesday. But tomorrow is the last day of early voting. So if you're listening to this now or tomorrow, please get out and early vote. Please, please, please.
I have,
Please, please, please. And don't forget, July 19th is primary day. So 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Please go and vote.
Well, go ahead.
And thank you, Valerie, for your great
I just
comprehensive
forgot. I just
guide.
forgot
That
I
was
was gonna say
excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you for that valuable information.
What were you going to say, Will, before we
Okay,
leave?
where is the book?
Yeah, where can you get it?
Oh, put it in the link. I the last time she put in there, I clicked on the link, filled out my paperwork. I got it in several days. It was awesome, and I read it. I read the DC. I'm telling you, this Black Voters Guide is the most impressive voters guide I ever had the privilege to read. I want to print it out. I just gotta go to Kinko's or whatever these things is to print it out, because it is the Montgomery guide, the Maryland guide, the Montgomery guide. It's 159 pages.
197, yeah.
197. What is
I
it?
think something like 197.
197.
Montgomery County is 197.
Yeah,
Get
Montgomery County is
have a
197.
meal, get a snack. It's worth it. It's worth the read.
Miss Valerie, thank you.
I think
guys.
I'm on
This is
page
Sheila.
155.
So will you
You're on
be-
page 155, Marilyn.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, will this
Yes.
Black Voters Guide be put out
Good
each
job,
time there's an
Nicole.
election?
Bye-bye.
Bye bye. Every guys have a good evening.
Bye-bye. You
You
too.
did the
Bye.
same.
Thank you. See you next week.